She didn't fall. She didn't trip. She just stopped trusting her legs. Margaret used to start her day with a walk around the garden, a gentle stretch of morning sun, the scent of lavender, and a pace she'd grown to love. But lately, even getting out of bed felt different. Her legs wobbled, not in pain, but in hesitation, like they weren't sure they belonged to her anymore. Doctors said she was fine. Just age, they shrugged. But Margaret knew better. Strength doesn't disappear all at once, it fades in silence, one step at a time. She stopped going to the garden, then she stopped going outside altogether. This video is for people like Margaret, for anyone who's ever felt their body growing quieter. Not sick, not broken, just different. And here's the truth no one told her. Some of that strength can come back. Not with pills, not with prescriptions, but with something far simpler. Just a few simple foods, no prescriptions needed. And mornings feel different again. Almonds, the small nut with a big impact. Tom didn't change everything, he just changed breakfast. For years, Tom started each morning the same way: coffee, toast, maybe a little jam. It was quick, familiar. But by the time he reached 72, the steps to the mailbox felt longer. His knees creaked, his balance wavered. He told himself it was normal, until the morning he nearly slipped reaching for the paper. That was the last straw. His daughter had been gently insisting for months. "Dad, just try almonds. Soaked overnight, easy on the stomach." He finally gave in. What he didn't expect was what happened next. Just one handful a day, soaked and eaten with his oatmeal. Within a few weeks, Tom felt steadier, less joint stiffness, and his energy returned before noon, not after a nap. The science is simple but powerful. Almonds are packed with magnesium, which helps regulate calcium in your bones, keeping them dense and strong. They also deliver vitamin E to ease inflammation and plant-based protein to maintain muscle. That's a trifecta for leg strength and joint support. For seniors struggling with aches, stiffness, or the slow fade of balance, almonds are more than a snack. They're a signal to your body that you're still building, still supporting, still standing. Tom still has his coffee, but now he has something else too: confidence. And while almonds gave Tom the strength to walk farther, for Diane, the answer came from the sea, tucked inside a tiny tin she'd spent her whole life avoiding. Sardines, the unlikely hero from the sea. Diane swore she'd never eat sardines. The smell, the texture. It reminded her of wartime rations. But then her joints started speaking louder than her preferences. At first, it was just her knees, crackling when she stood. Then, her hips joined in. Getting out of the car became a chore. Bending to pick up laundry meant holding onto the wall for support. Her doctor offered medication, but Diane hesitated. She didn't want more pills. She wanted her body back. That's when her physical therapist suggested something unexpected. Sardines. They're one of the few foods that come with built-in bone support, he said. Calcium, vitamin D, and omega-3s, all in one small package. Skeptical but desperate, Diane gave it a shot. She rinsed them, mashed them onto whole grain toast. A bit of lemon juice helped. 3 weeks in, she noticed her knees didn't swell after walking. The stiffness in her hips eased. She climbed the church steps without needing the railing. Quiet progress, but unmistakable. Why sardines work? Their tiny, edible bones are rich in calcium, helping to rebuild your own. They also contain vitamin D, which ensures that calcium is absorbed properly. The omega-3 fatty acids in sardines fight inflammation, key for anyone living with arthritis, stiffness, or joint pain. It's not about loving sardines. It's about loving the freedom that comes when your joints stop fighting you. Diane still doesn't love the smell, but she loves that she can kneel in her garden again without wincing. Type 1 if you've ever woken up and felt like your legs didn't belong to you. Type 2 if you've ever stood up too quickly and the room spun. Type 3 if you've ever sighed and whispered to yourself, maybe it's just age. I read every comment, because the next story we tell might be yours. Leafy greens, the silent muscle boosters. Ray never liked vegetables, not as a kid, not as an adult. But one afternoon, standing in his own kitchen, something shifted. He was trying to make lunch, just a simple sandwich, but when he bent down to grab a plate, he lost his balance. Again, no injury, just that jarring reminder that his legs weren't listening the way they used to. That night, he stumbled across an article about leafy greens, how they weren't just healthy, but powerful. Kale, spinach, collard greens. They were loaded with vitamin K and natural nitrates. Not just for bones, but for muscles too. Nitrates, it said, could improve how efficiently muscles use energy. That idea stayed with him, so he started small. A handful of spinach stirred into soup. A side of sautéed greens at dinner. No drastic diet, just a choice. By the end of the third week, something remarkable happened. Ray stood up from his recliner and realized he hadn't pushed off the armrest. He just stood. No wobble. No pause. Leafy greens work quietly. Vitamin K helps calcium bind where it belongs, in the bones. And those nitrates, they support blood flow and muscle performance, making everyday movements feel less like effort and more like freedom. Ray still doesn't crave salad, but he loves walking to the mailbox without clutching the railing, and he swears his morning stiffness doesn't last as long. It wasn't dramatic, just steady, just real. In a way, the greens gave him back something more important than strength. Confidence. A bowl of soup, a splash of olive oil, a soft return to ease. And while Ray found his rhythm in the warmth of soup, for Marie, her turning point came from something cold and creamy, a food so simple, she almost skipped it, until it changed how she moved. Greek yogurt, strength, hiding in a spoon. Marie never expected strength to come from a spoon. At 81, most things felt like effort, getting out of bed, reaching for the top shelf, even brushing her hair. She didn't complain. She just moved slower. Her daughter noticed. "Mom, you're sitting more than you used to," she said one afternoon gently. Marie nodded. "I just feel hollow," she whispered. "Not sick, not in pain, just empty, like something was slipping away from inside." That night, her daughter handed her a small bowl, plain Greek yogurt, topped with a few blueberries and a drizzle of honey. "Try this," she said. "It's not much, but it helps." Marie started eating it every morning. It became a quiet ritual. Spoon, bowl, sunlight through the kitchen window. Nothing changed at first, but then she noticed something strange. She wasn't gripping the table to stand up. Her arms felt steadier. Her legs didn't tremble when she stepped into the shower. Greek yogurt is more than just a snack. It's packed with high-quality protein that helps maintain muscle, especially for aging bodies that struggle to repair themselves. It also delivers calcium, key to bone strength, and probiotics that improve gut health, ensuring nutrients actually get absorbed where they're needed. Marie didn't understand all the science, but she understood how she felt. Stronger, more balanced, a little more herself. And that small bowl in the morning? It became a symbol of something bigger: nourishment, consistency, care. Now she mixes it with bananas, oats, even a sprinkle of cinnamon. Not because someone told her to, but because it feels good, because her body noticed. Greek yogurt didn't change everything, but it changed enough. It gave her mornings back. And for someone who thought stillness was the only option left, that soft, creamy spoonful was a quiet act of defiance. Marie reclaimed her rhythm. But for Harold, it wasn't a spoon that brought relief. It was a warm cup of something ancient, simmered for hours, and filled with stories his bones never forgot. Bone broth, liquid strength for joints. Harold didn't believe in wellness trends. He grew up during a time when pain was just something you worked through, without fuss, without questions. But after turning 78, something shifted. His knees ached before the sun even rose. His fingers curled slower each morning. And the worst part wasn't the discomfort. It was the sound, that sharp, grinding crackle when he moved. It made him feel like his body was rusting from the inside out. One night, his granddaughter brought over a jar. "Homemade bone broth," she smiled. "It's old-fashioned. Thought of you." Harold laughed. He didn't say no, but he didn't expect much either. The next morning, he warmed a cup. It smelled like Sunday dinners from long ago. Rich, familiar. He drank it slowly, unsure if it would help, only certain it made him feel remembered. But days passed, then a week, and something unexpected happened. His joints no longer screamed when he stood. He reached down to tie his shoes without flinching. Even getting in and out of the car felt smoother. Bone broth is a quiet healer. Simmered for hours, it draws out collagen, calcium, magnesium, and amino acids, each playing a role in rebuilding cartilage, strengthening bones, and soothing inflammation. For seniors, this means less grinding, more glide, less stiffness, more ease. Harold didn't notice the change all at once. But one afternoon, while lifting a garden hose, he realized he hadn't braced his elbow or winced from his shoulder. He stood still for a moment, confused, amazed. Then he smiled. The broth hadn't cured him. It had reminded his body how to move without resistance. Now he drinks a warm cup every evening. It's not a miracle. It's a ritual, a slow return to comfort, a kindness to his joints, a signal that he's still listening to what his body needs. While Harold found strength in that steady cup, 3 friends across the country were quietly building their own routines, one leafy, one creamy, one bold, and something even more powerful was beginning to unfold. The power of daily choices. They didn't start with goals. They didn't aim for transformation. They just wanted to feel a little steadier, maybe less sore in the morning, maybe a bit more confident when stepping into the shower. It began as something small, a handful of almonds, a bowl of yogurt, a single tin of sardines tucked beside toast. 3 neighbors, Tom, Marie, and Diane, living in the same quiet Ohio town, never planning to change much. But over time, their choices became habits. Their habits became rhythms, and those rhythms started to carry them. Down the front steps without the railing, across the grocery store without needing a cart for balance, out onto their porches in the morning sun without hesitation. None of them would call it a health plan. It wasn't trendy. It wasn't perfect. But it was theirs. They met every Wednesday now, not to compare progress, but to share recipes. Diane brought soup. Tom brought his soaked almonds. Marie always had yogurt and berries in a cooler. They called it Wednesday proof. Proof that small things done often could still make a difference. The science behind their foods mattered, but what mattered more was what these foods represented. Agency. A quiet sense of control in a world where the body so often feels out of our hands. These weren't dramatic changes, just shifts, just choices, daily ones, and with each one came something better than certainty. Hope. The kind that grows slowly, like muscle. The kind that makes the ordinary feel new again. They laughed more now, moved more, not because they were trying harder, but because their bodies were slowly beginning to trust them again. For the first time in years, Tom didn't fear icy sidewalks. Diane signed up for a community gardening class. And Marie, she walked past the elevator and chose the stairs. One step, then another, and another. Strength isn't always loud. Sometimes, it's just the result of choosing what feels kind, what feels steady, over and over again. But sometimes even those small steps lead somewhere unexpected. A quiet moment that reminds you, it's still not too late. What if you tried just once more? Carla had stopped expecting improvement. At 76, she had accepted the aches in her knees, the stiffness in her back, the short breath that came from simply getting dressed in the morning. Not with bitterness, just resignation. It's part of aging, she told herself. Be grateful you're still here. But inside, something ached louder than her joints. A quiet longing, not for youth, but for ease. For the feeling of not dreading stairs. For mornings that didn't start with fear. One afternoon, after another restless nap, she sat at the kitchen table with a cup of tea and stared at a list her daughter had made. 5 simple foods. Nothing exotic. No powders, no pills. Just things Carla used to eat without thinking. Almonds, leafy greens, yogurt, broth, sardines. She sighed, then circled the word yogurt. The next day, she bought a small tub, and for the first time in years, she tried. Just one food. Just once. Not because she expected magic, but because something in her whispered, it's still worth it. The change was not fast, but it was real. Within 2 weeks, she stood longer while brushing her teeth. A few days later, she caught herself humming while doing the dishes. The pain hadn't vanished, but the dread had softened. And in its place, something new had started to grow. Belief. Not in a miracle, but in herself, in her ability to support her body instead of apologizing for it. Trying doesn't mean becoming someone new. It just means giving your body a reason to trust you again. One small reason. Every day. A bowl, a walk, a stretch, a spoon. Carla still has her bad days, but now she also has good ones. And that alone feels like a kind of freedom. Because when you try, even just once more, you open the door to something that might surprise you. Ease, strength, joy, and maybe, just maybe, a version of yourself you thought had disappeared quietly, waiting to return. It wasn't one big moment, no dramatic transformation, just a series of quiet wins. A stronger step, a steadier hand, a morning without hesitation. For Margaret, it began with soaked almonds. For Ray, a warm bowl of soup. For Marie, a spoonful of yogurt in the sunlight. And for Harold, it was that first evening he stood from his chair without holding the armrest, realizing his body had remembered something it once knew well, how to move without fear. That's what these foods offered. Not perfection, not promises, but possibility. The possibility that your body is still listening, still responding, still capable of coming back to life little by little. These weren't diets. They were small acts of self-trust. Gentle reminders that you still deserve to feel strong, even if no one says it out loud. There is power in a soft routine, in the foods you choose, in the belief that it's not too late to feel more like yourself again. Maybe that belief has been quiet or buried under years of discomfort, but it's there. And sometimes all it needs is a bowl, a breath, and the decision to care. So if any part of this story felt true to you, hold on to it. Save it. Not for today, but for a morning when you need a little strength and someone to remind you. You're not alone. You never were. You don't need a prescription to begin again. You don't need permission to try. Just a handful of almonds. A little broth. A simple choice that says, I'm still here. I'm still worth the effort. If this felt true to you, I think you'll really appreciate the next video too. Take a look. You can save this video just in case you need it someday, or someone you love might. We've created an entire series for people over 65. You can watch the next one right below.